briefly discuss AMC support for the theater, but devote most of my remarks to the Security Assistance Program and its support to USAPAC's theater engagement strategy. So first slide, please. AMC supports the theater here through the units you can see down there in the bottom part of the slide, and specifically through the 2 Army Field Support Brigades that are stationed in the theater, the 403rd in Korea and the 404th at Joint Base Lewis McChord. And these AFSBs coordinate synchronize and integrate all of the support that AMC provides to the theater. We also have 2 contracting support brigades stationed in the theater, the 411th in Korea and the 413th in Hawaii, which do all of the contracting acquisition of equipment, supplies, and services to support the mission and the soldier well-being in theater. And then finally, SDDC's 599th Transportation Brigade, that's located in Hawaii, manages all of the surface moves in support of door-to-door container and break bulk cargo movement in the theater. AMC is also very actively involved in assisting the Department of the Army in managing the pre-position stocks that are in the theater. Of course, APS-4, which is dedicated to the Pacific with equipment for 1 heavy brigade combat team, 1 tailored sustainment brigade, and then 5 hospitals, and also APS-3, which provides support to multiple theaters, but is positioned in the Pacific with its equipment for an infantry brigade combat team, a sustainment brigade, theater port opening package, and then also the early entry hospital. But we also support PACOM and USAPAC with a very robust security assistance program. And the mission of the security assistance program is to build partner capacity, to support COCOM engagement strategies, and to build strategic partnerships around the world. And around the globe, we currently we support 145 countries with about 4,600 FMS cases, and the total value of the FMS cases right now is about $135 billion. We just finished the 2nd highest sales year ever, over $19.7 billion on the Army side. DoD was somewhere around $68 billion on the foreign military sales. But you really can't measure the success of the security assistance program in quantitative measures like I've talked about here, the number of countries or the number of cases. It's really about the foreign military sales and the security assistance are really means to an end of building and maintaining strong relationships with all of those 145 countries that we cover down on. And it's like the Chief of Staff of the Army says, we're cultivating friends before we need them. And many times these mill-to-mill relationships are the most stable, the most constant in a country. The diplomatic and the economic relationships may go hot and cold, but the military-to-military is what provides a constancy in the relationship between our 2 countries. And that's certainly the case in PACOM. You go to the next slide, please. And so this is our PACOM FMS placemat here. It's certainly the case in PACOM. We're engaged in 21 countries in PACOM. We have a security cooperation organization in each one of those 21 countries. We have, in fact, 3 countries in the Pacific that provide us liaisons to our headquarters in order to process their security assistance programs. We support USAPAC's Prevent, Shape, Win effort here through the full breadth of security assistance programs. Providing systems, you can see here on the chart, and we just have a representative number here. I think we have 12 countries shown here on the chart, but providing systems and training that prevent deter conflict in the region, as well as building the partner capacity and the capabilities needed by our partner countries and ensuring their interoperability with U.S. forces should conflict occur. But where I think that we're most successful day to day is in the shaping aspect of Prevent, Shape, Win, and shaping the operational environment through our persistent engagement in the Pacific region. From the increased number of key leader engagements that we've undertaken at AMC, at DSCA, the Defense Security Cooperation Agency, DASA, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army for Defense Exports and Controls, and AMC, all the way down to the MTTs, the short duration mobile training teams that we provide to PACOM. And actually, we don't provide them. They're done out of General Wiercinski's forces in the Pacific, paid for by blanket order training cases funded by the countries themselves. And so this past year in foreign military sales, we currently have 874 cases across the 21 countries I spoke of with a value of about $20 billion. But we continue to see an increase in the requests for both hardware and training from PACOM countries. Indonesia just came in with a request for 8 Apaches, for Javelin, for HIMARS systems. Republic of Korea is, we're engaged in a competition now in their down select for an attack helicopter platform. Australia, always a solid partner in the region. Thailand. We continue to work open cases with India, and we see progress there. The foreign military funding that we get is provided to countries in the region from state. It's not necessarily all that much, but it is on the rise. 2 years ago in FY11, it was at about $44 million. This past year in FY12, it was almost $53 million. And the administration has asked for about $77 million here for next year. But these are funds that go to the country, come back to us in forms of FMS cases. We also provide training to countries around the globe. We currently have 22 teams deployed in 18 different countries. These are primarily tactical assistance or technical assistance fielding teams. They're teams that we provide to a country when they purchase a specific system to assist in their fielding efforts. We conducted 9 MTTs in the PACOM AR last year, but we're seeing an increase in requests for that. We'll conduct 16 this coming year, and we're developing 3 of these TAF teams, the Technical Assistance Fielding Teams, to support the Taiwan Rotary Wing program with their purchase of 30 Apaches and 60 Blackhawks. And we suspect those 3 TAF teams will deploy in FY15. The Corps of Engineers is also very active in the Pacific through their construction projects, through their key leader engagements, through their information exchanges. They have 3 FMS cases in the region, and they provide, as you all know, the very critical support to the contingency response in 6 countries over the past several years. The International Military Education Training Program, or IMET, has also continued to grow. And we're at about an average of about 2,200 students coming back to the United States. This is a program where the country funds students coming back to CONUS schools. General Wiercinski showed on his chart we had about 1,200 students actually in school seats. We had an additional 1,000 that came back for specialty training, such as flight simulation training or exercises conducted at Fort Bliss and Fort Sill. So very effective program there with the IMET. And the increase in the systems I talked about earlier that we're looking to sell will have a residual effect of increasing the number of foreign students that come back to CONUS schools. I think it's important to note also that I think back in FY10 we had 32 invitations to PACOM country officers to attend the Army War College or intermediate level education. And in this year it'll be 43. And so we've seen this rise 32 to 43, which is a tremendous opportunity to build relationships at the senior levels of the forces in PACOM. We've also seen an increase in the interest in obtaining equipment that the U.S. Army is ready to divest itself of, which we declare as excess or long supply. Many countries in the Pacific are coming to us asking for equipment from Army stocks that has been declared excess. Again, another opportunity to provide, to establish a long-lasting relationship with these countries as they purchase sustainment packages. We have Americans in the country doing contracted logistical support for the systems that they pick up very cheaply. In fact, as is where is for excess defense articles. So they pay the transportation cost back, but other than that, it's free for these countries. I think USAPAC's also been very successful at utilizing the DoD 1206 program, which is a Title X authority started about 5 years ago. And over the last 3 years, USAPAC has been able to provide about $40 million worth of equipment to primarily 4 different countries, to Bangladesh, to Indonesia, the Maldives, and the Philippines, and primarily in support of their counterterrorism operations. But this is $40 million of Title X money that is sent to these 4 countries, And again, another opportunity to establish relationships with those 4 countries. And then finally, we've been able to enter into several co-development and co-production arrangements with countries around the region. Both Australia for the production of 81mm ammunition, and then with Japan for the production of PAC-2 and PAC-3 missiles. We have several co-development cases where we're working with these countries in key technology areas, Korea, Singapore, and Taiwan, but the 2 co-production are with Australia and Japan. And then finally, you all, I'm sure, are very aware of Secretary Panetta's and Deputy Secretary Carter's initiatives in India to explore the different opportunities for co-production and co-development with the Indians. And so in summary, security assistance support to this region is increasing and it's improving. It's very much tied to support the USAPAC theater engagement strategy, and we look forward to the opportunities that are going to be present to build and maintain relationships with our partner countries inside of the Pacific. Thank you, sir.
Bill, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been able to preserve a good amount of time for what we hope is going to be the meat of this dialogue and this panel, and that is to take your questions. There are several microphones throughout the room, and folks to assist you, just please state your name and direct the question, and we will do our very best.
Test.
Thank you for inviting me to this wonderful event. My name is Chi Dong-Lee. I'm a Washington correspondent for South Korea's Yonhap News Agency. Personally, this is a kind of emotional moment because 15 years ago, I served in the 2nd Infantry Division as Katyusha, augmentee to USFK. Now I stand here to ask questions as a journalist, so this is very emotional. Let me ask questions to General Wiercinski and General Johnson. There are many changes underway, such as rebalancing toward Asia and their OPCON transfer that will lead to the abolishment of Combined Forces Command. So do you think the role of U.S. ground troops in Korea will be or should be reshaped? And there are 19,000 ground troops of the United States in Korea. Do you think there could be any adjustment in the size? And last, General James Sherman requested the return of Apache units to Korea, but I don't see any response from the Pentagon on that issue. Do you still think the return of the Apache units to Korea is necessary? Thank you.
Before I pass this to General Johnson, first let me thank you, sir, for your service to both of our armies, and we're glad to have you back. This is when it works. JD.
Let me just pile on there with General Wiercinski and thanking you for your service. You know, it's interesting, as we speak, there is a gathering of former Katyushas at the 8th Army headquarters in celebration today. It's, again, as I spoke earlier, an amazing arrangement and relationship, and there are members of the business community across Korea that continue to serve their nation in different ways, and it's a relationship that we greatly enjoy, and it makes our alliance stronger. The OPCON transition will affect Combined Forces Command. Combined Forces Command will, upon OPCON transition, be dissolved and a new command relationship in its place. That command relationship broadly is laid out to be one of supporting and supported, with the Republic of Korea military taking the lead and U.S. forces in support. The details of that arrangement will continue to be worked from now until OPCON transition, with the #1 imperative being to sustain the strength and fighting power of the alliance and the ability, the optimal command and control mechanisms to retain the relationships and to retain the fighting power of the alliance. And as always, it's a matter of ensuring that the capabilities that the Republic of Korea has and that the United States brings to the alliance are complementary, so that we're able to do those things that are necessary as we've laid out to be able to continue to defend the Republic as necessary to deter aggression in the theater and to maintain stability, which is what we all want. You asked specifically about helicopters. General Thurman has come online and asked for Army aviation to be moved back to Korea. The Department of Defense and the United States Army are working their way through how best to do that now, and that request is still in place, and the department is still working on ensuring that the Army forces in Korea are best postured to be able to perform its missions to deter aggression and ultimately participate in the op plan if they were called on to do so.
Thank you.
Gentleman, Major Ben Fernandez. I noticed that during all of your presentations, there was not really much mention of counterterrorism, with the exception of 1206 funding. So I was kind of curious, to what extent did you see USARPAC being involved in counterterrorism issues? Obviously, it's probably not one of the highest priorities, but I was curious where it fell. And in relation to that, you've now got all these troops that have come home who have this training, advising, and assisting experience, things that we would traditionally think to be a Special Forces SFA task. Is there going to be any change in the relationship or requirements for the Special Forces in the region with all these new troops home? Thank you.
Well, first let me say we do not have the expert here, the SOCPAC commander, who is one of the component commanders for the PACOM commander, who literally controls all the Special Forces assets within the theater. Major General Norm Brosnick, United States Air Force. If he were here, he would tell you that our partnership is growing between USARPAC and SOCPAC. In fact, particularly now that both the 25th Infantry Division and 1st Corps are back, that is one of the ways that we are beginning to partner more clearly in the future. How that all works out as we now start to develop that process, I cannot tell you at this point in time. The issues that you bring up, particularly in counterterrorism, are first government-to-government decisions that have to be made, and that entails with our State Department brethren, of how our two nations want to go at this. Right now, we enjoy, for the most part, Phase 0, Phase 1 operations in theater. And that means that we are talking and not shooting. We want to remain in Phase 0, Phase 1 operations. We do that by engagement, we do that by training together, we do that by meeting the needs of both our nations, if it's a bilateral operation, and all of our nations in a multilateral event. Other than that, as we start to develop this, it is going to be critically important. Terrorism is not going to go away tomorrow. And the trans movement of terrorists, whether they're active in the AO or not, they move to the AOR. How we do that and how we go about that continues to evolve, and I believe we continue to get better. But as our Army forces are returning, I'm seeing a greater relationship between Special Forces and the Army, just as I have throughout our entire force since 9/11. That has been one of the benefits. We have changed in a way that we are more interoperable, we work more closely together, and we understand each other's capabilities better. Sir.
Frank, my compliments to you and Bob and J.D. What a great group of leaders to have leading in the Pacific during this important time. It really makes us competent. Now that I've got a different uniform on, obviously my question is how can industry help you in accomplishing your mission out in the Pacific?
I want to turn that to, let's start.
So I think engagement, just like we're involved on the government side, I think industry can engage with our foreign partners there and make known to them the capabilities that you have. I like to say that I don't recommend, I don't advocate, I don't represent firms, but I will certainly facilitate industry in my travels in the region, and I meet with them, senior military and civilian officials in the region. I have no problems with talking about different capabilities or different products that firms have and giving them contact out there. But I think that's the primary way, is to engage with them, stay engaged with them, stay engaged with USASAC and let us know. One of the first places we do an awful lot of work with countries in what we call pre-LOR work, and getting to the definition of a requirement from the country. And many times I learn best from industry how serious the country is in developing the requirement and purchasing the requirement. If you folded up your tent and you've left a certain country, then it tells me that I should probably not spend as many resources on the pre-LOR with that country. So if you would stay engaged with us on what you know in the region, and then stay engaged with partners.
Thanks, Bob.
And, sir, just to, going back to my last job at the Maneuver Center of Excellence at Fort Benning, one thing I learned, it's so critical, our cooperation with industry to ensure that we get our soldiers what they need, the best equipment, the best protection, and that close cooperation through things like the network evaluation exercise and all those experiments. I think it's just as important in the Pacific as we find needs where there's a gap, or we do have the tyranny of distance in the Pacific, and there's some real challenges, as you know as well as anybody. So staying closely linked on what our needs are and cooperating, working together. The thing that makes me proud is that close cooperation throughout the last 11 years has saved a lot of soldiers' lives and improved things like the MRAP and a double V-hull striker, and you could go on and on and on, and the individual equipment. When you look back to where we were 11 years ago and where we are now protecting our soldiers, it's essential. And there'll probably be some unique things that will come up in the Pacific that we don't even anticipate. So that close cooperation will be really important.
And ladies and gentlemen, just what you see here, what you've seen about the entire Pacific and the integration of 8th Army and U.S. Army Pacific and the First Corps, can't go understated that the previous Reserve Staff Commander, Lieutenant General Randy Nixon, was the architect of all of that. We just happen to be the beneficiaries in the execution. So, sir, thank you.
Thank you so much for the great topic today. My name is Mi-jung Hibit. I'm with the Voice of America, and I'd like to ask a specific threat that we are facing in Pacific Asia, that is North Korea's missile threat. So I'd like to ask this question to General Wiercinski, and either General Johnson can answer to my questions. In response to the recent agreement between U.S. and South Korea on missile range extension of South Korean missile, North Korea made a threat saying that it has missiles that can target the United States. How seriously are you taking North Korea's assertion? And second, if you don't think that it is not an imminent threat, how long do you think it will take for North Korea to develop such a capability? And how is the U.S. Army Pacific Command prepared against the North Korean threat? Thank you.
Well, I'll talk about the integration of that. And I'll pass it to General Johnson here for the specifics. But the U.S. Army Pacific has an array of not only major commands that deal with specific threats, but also theater and agency commands. And we work in conjunction with our joint partners, Air Force, the Navy, and the Army, together, particularly in the theater ballistic missile defense. And we have a specific theater enabling command called the 94th Air and Missile Defense Command that works very, very closely not only with the Air Force and the Navy, but also with CFC and 8th Army on the peninsula. As for specifics and details on the peninsula, I'll pass it to the expert, General Johnson.
Well, to answer your question, of course, we take it very seriously. And it is a part of the environment that we live in Korea. And we work very hard with our Republic of Korean allies and other allies in the region to ensure that we are able to defend the Republic against these kinds of threats. And General Wiercinski just talked about the integrated approach we use for theater ballistic missile defense. As a part of the 8th Army, we have the 35th Air Defense Brigade, which has our Army's most state-of-the-art air defense capabilities and missile defense capabilities. It's a part of that integrated effort. And it's pretty clear that the North Koreans have had a persistent effort to develop these technologies. And so, as I said when we began, we take these threats very seriously, and we watch and monitor it very closely and continue to improve our own capabilities to be able to do those things that we have to do to deter aggression and to be able to perform our portion of the outplan if we're called on to do so.
Good morning. I'm Woody Goldberg, the Civilian Aide Secretary of the Army for Washington, D.C. I want to thank the panel for a very informative and timely presentation. Indeed, our Army has a role in the Pacific. I want to thank you also for your support and the vision of former Chief of Staff of the Army, General Casey, and now General Odierno, because next week our U.S. Army band, Pershing Dome, will travel to China, part of a reciprocal exchange for joint performances in 3 cities in the People's Republic of China: Beijing, Shanghai, and Nanjing, with the military band of the People's Liberation Army of China. I think this is a major advance. It uses our instrument of international diplomacy, our Army band, as we used it when the PLA band visited in 2011 here in the United States. Thanks for your support and your vision. Thanks, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. And I will tell you that people will look at that and think it will not have an impact. I can tell you specifically you will have a huge impact. Now, let me just pass that really quickly to Ambassador Moriarty to talk about how even the single individual can be the ambassador for the United States and the impact that that has in the region. Touch that.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the keys. Hello? Are we on? Can you hear me back there? Okay. One of the keys going forward is to demystify, de-demonize the two sides. You know, when countries understand each other better, then you're going to see a more stable relationship. When you have your people out there working with the soldiers from the PLA, they'll begin to say, hey, look, we have common interests. We understand each other. These Americans are human beings. They're folks with whom we can and with whom we need to work. So I salute you. I think what you're doing out there is going to be incredibly useful to the United States, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you for General Wiercinski for putting together a tremendous panel here, and I appreciate bringing in the allies, and of course with allies I include the State Department, finally. You've given a very good overview of the Army's rebalancing efforts and so forth, and how that fits in with QDDR and the President's vision. Old ideas sometimes die hard, and I remember my time at U.S. Pacific Command. There was a lot of discussion, but we'll just put it that way. There's a lot of discussion about creating a Northeast Asia Command and transforming what was currently on the Korean Peninsula, as we now know it today, USFK and so on and so forth, into that kind of a command. From a DoD PACOM perspective, has that thought resurrected itself, and what might be the status? So if you, General Wiercinski, could respond to that, and then General Johnson, I'd appreciate your thoughts too.
Well, clearly I don't speak for DoD at that level, but I will tell you that the conditions always change. First thing we have to do is have a contract. We have to see what that does and where that goes. We're looking at differences in command and control and how better to become more efficient, to be more responsive, to go back to the principles of war, of unity of command, and to see how that all fits. At this point in time, there is no change. He works very, very clearly. What I really appreciate when I get to sit in these meetings and listen to Admiral Locklear and General Thurman talk, it is very clear to me, and I feel as just a bystander in this, quite frankly, as a component commander, first of all, their relationship, and secondly, the fact that they completely understand each other's lane, and who would support who, and who would be the supporting or the supportive commander at any given time. There are no egos in that room. And to me, that's very heartening. It goes to the level of our jointness and the way we are. I think another thing that people don't really understand is the PACOM commander is the only COCOM that we have where all his component commanders are in the same place. And that in itself provides for unity of command. When he can make a telephone call within 10 minutes, we're all there in his office. He luckily doesn't have to do that often. But right now, no change. I believe the relationship is incredibly strong. I believe that a lot of times it's personality driven, and these two personalities are spot on. JD, I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Just real quickly to say, first off, I'd echo the relationship between PACOM and U.S. Forces Command is, I think, by most observations, as strong as it's ever been, if not stronger. That while OPCON transition will cause a change in the focus of U.S. forces in Korea, the way they interrelate with the Republic of Korean forces, and the name change for U.S. Forces Korea will change to Korea Command. Our focus will still be essentially on the mission that we have. And U.S. Pacific Command, of course, has the responsibility, and Admiral Locklear has an integrated concept for how Korea Operations fits into the greater understanding of how Pacific Command does its business and maintains the region. So our focus remains pretty much as it is today, focused on Korea and integration with Korea.
Morning, gentlemen. Colin Clark, AOL Defense. We've heard a great deal about what the rebalance to Asia is not. It's not about encircling China. It's not about China. Can we get something perhaps more positive? What is the rebalance? Why, aside from the fact that the Marines have been talking about this for 15 years, most folks live along the littoral and they live in Asia. Aside from that, what is the rebalance and to what effect? We know the 60% of the fleet's going to be there. What else?
Yeah, I'm happy to take a crack at that. I think what it is more than anything else is making sure that the most dynamic part of the global economy has an appropriate level of security. If you look at, for example, how much oil passes through the Straits of Malacca every day, it's 15 million barrels. This is where the growth in the global economy is going to take place throughout the next several decades. And it's very important for us to make sure that we have security architecture in place that preserves peace and stability in the region. And that, above everything, in my view, is what rebalance to Asia is all about. It's a recognition, a long overdue recognition, in my view, that this is where the action is in the world, and the United States, whether it's diplomats or its soldiers, needs to be present.
Good morning. My name is Malia Dumont. I'm a China hand assigned to OSD Policy Strategy Office, and I'm also an Army Reserve officer assigned to the PACOM J5. And General McManus, I had the pleasure of serving for in Australia in 2005 when I was deployed to Afghanistan. It was a great experience.
Thank you.
My question is about personnel. All the speakers have talked to varying degrees about the ability of our troops to engage with the human terrain. And I'd like to hear from you about some of the personnel initiatives, including training and education, that are going to enable our troops to successfully navigate the very diverse and complex human terrain we find in the AOR. Thanks.
That is a great question. The longer I have been in the Pacific and the longer I've had my different positions, the more I am absolutely convinced that our education, our officer and non-commissioned officer professional development needs to change slightly. We do a magnificent job and have in the 33 years that I've served. I've seen a tremendous change in the way we train our officers, and particularly, most importantly, our non-commissioned officers, on professional development, leadership, and understanding. In the last 11 years, we have asked 21 and 22-year-old sergeants to have meetings with mayors, public officials, understand utilities, infrastructure, rule of law, governance. I'm not sure for any of you who went to your basic courses, but they never told me about that or trained me in that way. And I fully believe that we are looking at, and I know our Army is, in how we do that and how we go through professional development. I believe we need to do a better job with our FAOs. Our FAOs are out there, our foreign area affairs officers who are stationed in foreign countries at embassies as either DAS or assistance officers. They are our voice on a day-to-day basis and must be experts. It's a long-term program to understand the culture, the history, the language, the military organizations. And I believe that we must get ourselves on a path to have our very, very best be our FAOs, because they're our ambassador every day out there with our counterparts in the AOR. I believe that us training, whether it be a platoon or a brigade combat team, when it goes to another country, yes, we are focused on tactics, techniques, procedures, how to engage with each other to ensure that our systems work so that we can command and control. But there is a second benefit there, and that is the cultural exchange that occurs between two nations and two peoples. Because each one of those soldiers goes back with a different opinion than what they had when they first arrived. And the same thing happens to the foreign officer, non-commissioned officer, soldier, when he sees an American and engages. When I travel to each country that I go to, I like to speak at the war colleges or the staff colleges of the countries that I'm in. For two reasons. One, I want to see if there's an American in that class. And the second is I want to be able to answer questions that they have about our policies, our procedures, our Army. In every case, when I go to a course and there's not an American student in it, the questions are inherently different, to the point of almost embarrassingly wrong, or an attitude that is not what we are doing. I think it's absolutely critical that we have IMET and people in courses in every one of our partner nations so that they can be America's voice and at least stand and say, no, that's not right, that's not how it works, or say, yes, that is correct, that is how we proceed. I'm a big fan. As a matter of fact, I'm one of the major proponents, so you can sign me up for it. I talk about this all the time. I think that we have to engage more in the training of our officers, non-commissioned officers, and soldiers in cultural, language, understanding, and then getting off into those other areas that are non-traditionally military. Rule of law, infrastructure, economics, and learning how to talk. I don't know if anybody else has...
But just piling on, there's no doubt it's one of the key lessons over the last 11 years, the importance of human dimension. And one of the reasons we want to work closely with Special Operations Forces, they do it extremely well. They understand, and there is nothing like immersing when you do an exchange, whether those individuals come to train with you or you go to train with them, the preparation of the culture, the history, and then the immersion. And as General Wiercinski said, the soldiers always come back with a greater understanding and knowledge and develop an amazing relationship. You know, we have the greatest non-commissioned officers in the world, and they're our greatest role models, not the generals or the colonels, it's the non-commissioned officers out there working with the other services. They have a huge impact. They learn a lot, and they teach a lot of great values and interaction, much more than just training, and they come away much stronger. So it's absolutely critical. And one of the main reasons we want to do so many exercises, so many exchanges.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in quickly. Having been an ambassador twice, I've seen situations where you do have, as General Wiercinski was saying, an FAO, a defense attaché, who has actually been through the National Defense University of the country in question 10 years previously. His batchmates are all over the place. He can pick up that phone and do things that I, as the ambassador, could not do. So, as you go forward, strengthening that, making sure that it becomes routinized is absolutely vital, I think.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said so far. We're getting ready to get a question from General Bancho back here from Japanese Self-Defense Force, but he is an example. He and I are classmates in the U.S. military education system, and so when 8th Army participated in Yamasakura last year, he and I immediately had a connection, and were able to build on that very quickly. But I agree also with General Wiercinski. It really has to work at every level, and sometimes works best at the lowest level. Sergeant Major Harris, who's in the back of the room here, is the 8th Army Sergeant Major, has worked so that our junior enlisted school, the Warrior Leader Course, now has Republic of Korean Army NCOs attending that course side by side with our U.S. Army soldiers. That's the best way to build those relationships and to gain understanding. And then every unit that comes to Korea works in a fully partnered environment. It doesn't do any good to come to Korea and train as a U.S. Army unit in Korea. You've got to train in a partnered environment, because those are the skills that we'll bank on for the future.
Gentlemen, we have time for one more question. Just 2-minute admin announcements. First, there's take-home items up here in the front. So please come up here and get the placemat. You have a digital copy of all the products that you've seen today, from the video to all the slides, the bios of this distinguished panel, and some additional items. Second, some of you sat down and you had a survey on your chair. I would ask you to please fill that out and return it to the rear of the room towards the exit before you leave. Very important to get this feedback for next year's AUSA in terms of messaging and communicating. And with that, I turn it over to the last question. Sir.
Sir, Colonel Biddle, Rusty Biddle, the Force Comm Liaison here at the Pentagon. Sir, I have a doctrinal question. It may be a short answer, but first I've got to say, General Turner, it's scary how much you look like the Army G3 XO, my classmate Bill Turner.
He's a real good-looking guy.
Sir. So in Earlybird, just a week or so ago, it talked about the Army officially becoming a partner in the air-sea battle concept. And I'm wondering if it's not too early, has that started to impact anything on your strategic planning efforts? Or are you at least, is anybody in the panel involved in that concept, that planning?
I would say simply, great question. You know, air-sea battle gets you access, and it's critical. But as was mentioned up here, people live on the land, and you know, the access and the precision may work, and that's terrific. But access so that land power can assist on the land and do what needs to be done, of course, across the wide range. So a lot of work and thought in how that all fits together, and I think a lot more to come. That's pretty exciting. But They're in the early stages as well in air-sea battle, and again, I had the privilege of talking to the PACOM commander about this, and there are a lot of good things it brings, and then there's certainly a role for the Marines and the Army in that, a critical role, because you have to have more than access as well. You have to control the air and the sea, of course, but you have to have more than access.
I'll take one more. General Boncho, please, sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your very fruitful and very professional discussion. Thank you very much. I'm General Bansho, Vice Chief of Staff of Japan Ground State Defense Force. I have a very short comment and a very quick question. My first comment is appreciation. As shown on the slide and the videos, last year, March 11th, we had a very bad disasters, such as the East Japan Great Earthquake. But at the time, we had a very good news. That is your support. As the name of the Operation Tomodachi. Tomodachi means friendship. You provided us a very huge and very heartful support. So we really confirmed that the meaning of the alliance, and we confirmed the importance of the daily basis training and C2 structures and planning, etc. So I really understand that friend in need is friend indeed. Thank you very much. And second is a very simple question. May I ask your perspective, that of your rebalancing and the role of the war cooperation with the alliance? Thank you.
General Boncho, I'm not sure I understood the question.
Okay. My question is your views as of the relationship between the rebalancing and the relation with allies. How do you expect, or how do you think about this rebalancing toward the war with allied countries? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, General Boncho. I will start. I want to pass that to Barry for his perspective on that too. But I will tell you that the United States, 5 of the 7 treaty allies of the United States of America are in the Pacific. Korea, Japan, Philippines, Thailand, and Australia. And we, as a government, made a commitment to those 5 treaty allies that transcend any of this rebalancing, refocus, shift, pivot. We have a treaty alliance that will be upheld to the letter of the law. And I see nothing that would change that. That one perspective. Barry, you want to jump?
So, yeah, completely agree with the CG. I think the treaty alliances that we all have within the region are actually quite a stable platform to build new alliances and new engagement within the region. One of the great joys my country has is deepening the relationship and deepening the treaty alliance work that we're now starting to do with your country, sir, based upon the United States supporting us in that particular endeavour. It's been a great opportunity for us to learn more about Japan and work more with Japan. We're doing exactly the same with South Korea. We've just signed a new agreement with the Philippines on mutual support from a security perspective. And none of that would have been possible without the range of current firm treaty alliances that my country and the United States already shares within our region. So I don't think in that sense it's a rebalance. I think it's actually building on a balance that is already there.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you, General Boncho. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending this panel. I'd like to thank my panel members, the real experts here. We will be around for questions. I personally have to run to state for a meeting, but I will be around this afternoon if you have anything specifically for me. Thank you for your attention.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, all your digital items are up here, and the placemats are up in the front. Please be able to take them home with you.